Are you under pressure right now? I think being under pressure is a really common experience for chiefs in large organizations, and maybe that would be something like intense pressure much of the time. And my point of view is there's something that's really important to remember when you're experiencing pressure. And that is that in a profound way, whatever happens here, you are going to be okay. And maybe that sounds a little trite, but I think it's important. And that's not to say that what you're dealing with isn't in some ways really significant. It may be very significant, and there may be very significant consequences of things not going the way you're aiming for them to go. But there's also a kind of greater truth, if you like, a greater reality, which is that whatever happens here in this particular situation, even if that's something like the worst case outcome, that you are still going to be okay. And we know that's true because you've been through scenarios where things didn't work out the way you wanted, where maybe something like the worst case scenario occurred, and here you still are. And even if those things didn't happen to you, perhaps they happened to other people, and you've seen that they were able to survive those things, and they were able to be okay. They're still standing in some ways. Many years ago, a friend shared with me the concept of worst case scenario planning. And what was so fascinating about that process was to discover that when we do that worst case scenario planning, where we think about, okay, what's the worst that can happen here? And maybe personally, what's the worst that could happen for me personally in this particular scenario? We found that often the answer was, well, that wouldn't be so bad. There may even be some positive things that could come out of that. And that's not to say that you're aiming for those worst case scenarios. Of course you're not. Those aren't the things that you want to happen. But sometimes when we look at those things very clearly, we find that there could even be upsides. And I don't think that's about being kind of Pollyanna-ish about it. I actually think it's about being very practical. And it also speaks to the greater reality of who we each are, which of course I talk about a lot. So that's the greater reality of who we are, what I call the who I am. And that who I am, that greater reality, it exists beyond whatever the current outcomes might be of whatever it is you're dealing with. So it really exists beyond the worst case scenarios, as well as the best case scenarios. It's steady, it's secure, it's stable, regardless of what happens here. And so the value in remembering that you're going to be okay is that it actually connects you to this greater reality of who you are. And that is, in every case, that is the best place from which to engage with the current pressure you're experiencing. It's amazing how, when you just remind yourself, look, whatever happens here, I'm going to be okay. You start to think more clearly, more strategically. You start to understand the levers you can pull that are actually going to move the dial, the things you can ignore and say no to, the people you need to engage in order to keep things on track. All of that becomes more clear and more obvious. So that's my encouragement. If you're under pressure right now, just remind yourself, whatever happens here, you're going to be okay.